that is the essence of Canada's food guide.
Ditch the cereal and opt for one of these beautiful parfaits. Fettit hummus.
We are going to be making a beet salad that has all of the flavors and ingredients as a beet borscht.
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, the Zoomer with Libby Znaimer.
Welcome to the Zoomer. Food brings us together, and we Canadians are fortunate to have a veritable cornucopia of cuisines at our fingertips. And in addition to being delicious, some also provide added health benefits. We're going to showcase food from different cultures. It's especially timely as so many of us are trying to get back on track after a lot of stress eating during the pandemic. But before we dive in, let's tee up the topic.
Making it healthily into old age doesn't require high-tech gadgets or a magic elixir. Rather, it starts with eating right. Upping your intake of fruits and veggies can lower your risk of mortality from all causes. Nuts are nutrition powerhouses. People who consumed more than 3 ounces of nuts per week had a lower mortality risk than non-nut eaters. Striving for a more plant-centric diet has its benefits, from lowering cholesterol and blood pressure to cutting your risk of heart failure nearly in half. And sipping green tea is like medicine in a mug. In one study, people who drank at least 5 cups of green tea a day had a 23% lower risk of death from any cause. As far as what not to do, steer clear of sugar and processed foods. And when it comes to meat and alcohol, moderation is key.
Well, Rose Reisman just wrote a new cookbook, which is the first cookbook inspired by the latest Canada Food Guide, which is a whole different way to eat. And I think a lot of things were on the horizon with that already. So, Rose, basically, it's more vegetables, less of everything else.
That doesn't sound too appetizing. What they're emphasizing today, and we'll show it at the end of the show, is to take your plate. Half of it should be vegetables and or fruit. A quarter of it should be 100% whole grain. So that could be pasta, rice, quinoa, and a quarter of it protein. It's a new way of thinking. There's no more 4 food groups. Meat and dairy no longer have their own category. And guess what? The best news, don't count calories and don't count serving sizes or portions. So it's just for you to start thinking about. And it's a great, great tool when you're trying to maintain your weight, lose weight, and stay healthier.
You know, and when the food guide first came out, I thought, no problem. But actually, when I delved down into it, it is a problem because it's less of the things that I usually make and more of things that I don't. And Miheer, one of the cuisines where you actually really don't miss meat if you don't have it is Indian food.
I think you're absolutely right. This is what I try to explain to people all the time. It's like when you are talking about like a chicken breast marinated with some thyme and lemon, the first thing you taste when you take a bite is chicken. But when it comes to Indian food, the first thing if you're having a chicken curry, the first thing you taste is the spices and all the other stuff first, then the chicken. And that's a very different way of eating. And that's what we're going to talk about is what spices bring to our plate, how healthy the spices are. And all these spices are connected to Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is this natural remedy to get better and get healthy.
Chef Suzanne, Middle Eastern cuisine also is generally very healthy.
100%. And I would like to call it Arabic cuisine more so than Middle Eastern cuisine. Now, unlike the food that is typically in the various regions in India, which is delicious food that I love, we don't necessarily use a lot of spices. We will use select spices. We're very restrained when it comes to the spices that we use. We use a lot of herbs to enhance a dish. A lot of nuts play a major role in our fillings, in our garnishes, or sometimes it's ground and it's part of the dish itself. And meat definitely is part of the cuisine, lamb particularly, because lamb is indigenous to that part of the world. But vegetables as well are very, very important. So we have a very diverse and very rich culture of food. And I hope you're going to like the dish that I'm going to represent for you today.
I'm sure I will. Shauna, Godfrey, when it comes to Eastern European and Ashkenazi Jewish food, healthy, maybe not so much.
I think people associate Ashkenazi Jewish food with a lot of meat-based dishes or starches like potato or kasha, those kinds of things. But I think there's a whole seasonal side to that kind of cuisine that people were more accustomed to cooking what was growing in that season, fermenting vegetables to preserve over the winter, and consuming a lot of cultured dairy products. So I think those sorts of ingredients and dishes are sort of at the heart and the origin of Ashkenazi cooking. And as time has progressed, the consumption of meat has gone up, but there are still a lot of dishes that really lend itself to vegetable-based cooking.
And Suzanne was mentioning a religious basis for some foods. So obviously with those foods, there's also the requirements for keeping kosher, and both Muslims and Jews aren't supposed to eat pork. So there's all kinds of things playing into this, and it's fascinating.
Yes, it is. It is.
We need to take a short break. When we return, we'll get cooking with Rose Reisman.
That is the essence of Canada's food guide.
Welcome back. The rules for Canada's new food guide are simple, but getting them on the plate and making that appealing is another story. To show us just that, welcome back, Rose Reisman. Hi, Rose.
Hey, Libby, I'm going to make it look so appealing. You're going to do this the minute you get off the show. Okay, so we're going to do a beautiful Mediterranean dish. We're going to do some salmon, and I think you can see it here. I've got some salmon, asparagus, and cherry tomatoes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mix together some olive oil, and I think you have the recipe there, Libby.
Yep, I have the recipe, and I actually, this is what the salmon looks like. Raw and ready to go and be cooked, but let's watch Rose do it.
All right, so I'm mixing together a little bit of honey, some olive oil, and a little bit of Dijon mustard, which gives it that lovely Mediterranean flavor. We're just going to whisk this together, and I'm just going to brush it over my salmon. Okay, so this is my lovely honey mustard glaze. And I've got about a pound and a half of salmon here. It's going to feed 4 people.
Wow.
So hopefully you weren't thinking that was gonna be your meal. And now what I want to do, let me just move this out of the way for a moment so that you can see everything. I have some chopped pistachio nuts, and I love pistachio nuts, but feel free to use walnuts, pecans, almonds, whatever you like. I'm going to add some panko crumbs to this. Again, if you don't have panko crumbs, breadcrumbs is fine, gluten-free breadcrumbs is fine. A little more oil to mix that together, and some salt and pepper. That's it. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
All right, very simple. I'm going to put a little bit of chopped parsley. You could put mint or cilantro in here if you'd like. And then I'm just going to mix this together. Let me see where my spoon is, my little spoon. Here we go. And just until it's nice and wet. And this is your crumb mixture that you're going to sprinkle over top. All right, so now I'm going to take this, just sprinkle it over top the salmon. Let me bring this over here so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to sprinkle this over top, pat it down, You're going to preheat your oven to about 400 degrees. Normally, I'd cook my salmon at 425, but you don't want to burn this lovely crust. Take your asparagus, and you can do it in a skillet. I would add a little bit, make sure your pan is really hot first.
Yeah.
Add a little bit of oil. And you might want to look here what I do. I put oil into a bottle, and I love it. It controls the amount of oil I use. I'm spraying my asparagus and my cherry tomatoes. And you can, Libby, literally, you cook them all at the same time. One of the reasons I love a sheet pan is that I put it in the oven and I forget about it. Now, if you've got thin asparagus, you're gonna maybe have to pull that out earlier. But if not, I cooked this up as well, and I'll show you my finished portion shortly. It took about 15 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees. Now, I like to use a little bit of Himalayan salt or sea salt over top my vegetables. And remember, when you add salt at home, people don't know this. That's not the cause of high blood pressure. The high blood pressure from sodium comes from the packaged, frozen, canned foods. So enjoy yourself at home. Don't get crazy with the salt, but definitely use, as I say, I love a sea salt or a kosher salt, which has more texture and more flavor. That is it. Now,
Okay,
I've also
Rose,
made up
question. So I've got this in a very hot wok on a stovetop. So how long might this take? And
I would say I like my asparagus really bright green and crispy. I'd say maybe 3 to 5 minutes. So where you'd watch the cherry tomatoes is you might want to put that in foil. So this on the barbecue would be fabulous. You wouldn't turn the salmon, you just leave it on one side, skin side down. So really easy. So I'm gonna, in the meantime, pop mine into the oven, and then I'll just talk about the quinoa for a minute. Oh yeah, now, one thing I did want to mention, sorry, how do you know when your salmon's ready? So what do you do, Libby? What's your technique?
I can usually just tell, and I like my salmon to be like a little touch undercooked.
You're with me. I love it like that. If you want it well done, that's fine too. So I'm going to pop this in the oven right now and my assistant do that. And then I'll talk about my quinoa. So up to you what grain you want on the side. You need to have that plate a grain. So whatever you like, be it pasta, be it rice, quinoa, farro, barley, you're going to try to look for 100% whole grain. Again, the old food guide said bread. So you could use white bread for everything, which is basically flour, and it's just a starch and sugar, a simple carb. But I'm using some quinoa here, 2 reasons. So Libby, for you that like more protein on your dish, quinoa is a protein. It is a complete protein. So if you ate quinoa all your life, you wouldn't need any other animal protein. So this also is going to fill me up more. So when I finish this dish, I will be satisfied no matter what. Okay, so here's the trick for quinoa. And I've also had bad luck when I've gone to a restaurant. Even the instructions on the packages are wrong. Here it is, 1 1/4 cups of water. Bring that to a boil. Don't let it boil too long. You could actually add your dry quinoa to it. 1 1/4 cups of water to 1 cup of quinoa. So if you ever see 2 to 1 ratio, no, it gets soggy and too wet. So bring that 1 1/4 cups of water. You can throw in, as I say, your quinoa. And when it's ready, it's always best. You could serve it immediately if you're really hungry. But the key is I like to let it sit for another 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Then you get, if you can see my texture, look how beautiful that is. That texture, every grain is separate. Whereas if you overcook it, it's mushy. It's like oatmeal. So this is perfectly cooked quinoa. To that, if you want to season it, I might add a little bit of olive oil, which I have here, a little bit of salt and pepper, or whatever herbs you want. Like this would be lovely with, again, mint or basil. And just mix that up, and that's going to be your side grain dish.
Okay, so here we have our beautifully cooked salmon. So how do we arrange the plate to make it food guide friendly?
All right, so right now I've got my salmon. We can all see my asparagus and tomatoes. Let me just put that over to the side for a minute, and hopefully you can see my dish well. I'm going to take some quinoa.
So the asparagus has to be half the plate, right?
Yes, so the asparagus and the tomatoes. So now you can see this. I'll hold it up in a moment. So I've got quinoa being 1/4 of my plate, my asparagus and my tomatoes are going to be the other half of the plate. Okay, let's see, maybe I'll spoon here. And then I'm going to cut this salmon and lots of veggies. You know, even though my recipe might only say a cup of tomatoes, by all means, add more if you'd like. And now my salmon, I'm going to take off about a quarter of this. Okay. And there goes my delicious salmon. And I hope you can see that because that is the essence of Canada's food guide. Can you see that all right?
Okay, it's not elegant, but Rose, do these proportions look quite right?
Yeah, looks good.
Thank you so much for this, Rose.
A pleasure, Libby. Not tough. Let's just try and do it. It's to good health.
When we come back, we'll break down the spices that are the basis for Indian food and make it so irresistible. That's next.
Libby, there you go. You made your own house-made garam masala.
Okay, Libby's garam masala. Welcome back. Chef Miheer Shete is the owner of Curryish, a hot new pop-up here in Toronto. Chef Miheer is here to break down all of the amazing spices that make Indian food so wonderful. And now we all have our own recipes for curry, but are we treating those unique spices properly when preparing our favorite dish? Chef Miheer.
Well, thank you for having me, Libby. I just wanted to take this opportunity, like, you know, when I had to come up with a recipe for this segment, I thought instead of doing chicken curry or like something delicious as a curry, why not I focus on some health benefits of these spices and talk a little bit more about what these spices are and what they do to you. And I've always found that every time when I talk to people about spices, the first thing come to their head is it's hot food, but it's not hot food. What spices does is they add flavor to your food. What makes it spicy is the red chilies and green chilies and all those items, which when you add those to the curry, it kind of makes it spicy. So that's the difference between spicy, flavorful food and hot and spicy food. So I just wanted to kind of go over a few spices which I have, and I think you have the same spices in front of you.
And
Libby.
I have a hot pan here starting to toast them. Why is it important to toast them? And let's go through that process. You can talk about the spices as I put them in the pan.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, fine. Maybe you take like a pan, which you already have it hot. I would take a teaspoon of cumin.
Cumin here. I'm just going to estimate here. We don't.
Yeah,
okay.
That's okay. Just go with the flow. Then you're going to put a teaspoon of coriander seeds.
Okay, they're burning. Oops. We're having
take it off the heat if you want.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then cinnamon sticks.
Okay, do I break them?
Yeah, just rough, just break them out. And black peppercorn.
Oh no, these are black mustard seeds. I don't think we have black peppercorns.
You can go with the black mustard seeds then.
Okay. Yeah.
You have star anise?
We do.
Okay. So let's add a couple of those star anise.
Okay.
Okay. So now these are just like. So now we're gonna toast these.
Okay.
You know, very. You can normally start with a cold pan, so that they.
Oh. Are those bay leaves or curry leaves?
Those are curry leaves.
Okay. Do I add those
in?
You
can add that. Yeah, you can add those instead of bay leaves.
Okay. So.
Wonderful.
So I have them in a hot pan over.
So just keep stirring it until you see those spices are a little golden brown.
That's happening pretty quickly.
Yeah. Ideally, I would recommend to start with a cold pan,
Okay.
so that you give time to the spices to kind of heat up and toast it. So I think you're looking good. I can see the smoke coming up, and you can pull the spices off the heat and let it sit. And you can smell the aroma in your room. I can imagine. So that's the difference between when you toast the spices, you're kind of essentially taking out all the aromas from the spices. And if you can take like a teaspoon of cumin seeds in your palm.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
It's a very basic technique, which I use it all the time. So we'll try to smell it.
Yep.
Right? Try to take a pinch of cumin seeds and rub it with your fingers.
Yep.
Right? And now try to smell that.
It's intensified for sure.
Right? And that's the difference. So you have raw spices, and then you crush them. You have a different aroma, different smell. And then when you toast it, the flavor gets a little bit more intense. So now the spices which you have in the pan, you can put it in your spice grinder.
Whoops.
Yep. And then you can blend that. Again, depending on what you are using it for, you can keep it coarse, you can do it fine, and so what have you. Right now, I did the same mix, and I have it fine. So you can go ahead and blend it fine.
I think it's pretty good. Okay, let's see. Yep, it's pretty fine.
Wonderful. So, so that's your toasted spices, also called as garam masala. So garam masala stands for toasted spices. Again, you have different ratios, different combinations of spices in a garam masala. So, Libby, there you go. You made your own house-made garam masala.
Okay, Libby's garam masala.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
We need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll chat with chef and author Suzanne Husseini. That's next.
Ditch the cereal and opt for one of these beautiful parfaits. Fettet hummus.
Welcome back. Middle Eastern food is having a moment, partly because of the worldwide popularity of chefs like Yotam Ottolenghi and Sami Tamimi. It's become much more available here after a recent wave of immigration. And I have to say that Arabic and North African cuisines are my culinary home. They're definitely what I do best. And now let's welcome chef and author Suzanne Husseini. Suzanne.
Hello. Well, I'll say to you in Arabic, we say ahlan wa sahlan, which is welcome. Welcome to my kitchen. So today we're going to be making something, what we call in Arabic, fettet hummus. Fettet means that there is a bread component in it, fet, like pieces of bread or croutons. And hummus is chickpeas, which is what hummus means in Arabic. The dip that we all know is hummus bitahini, but we call it hummus, but that's where it comes from, okay? So what we're doing and we're starting off with is chickpeas. That now I like to soak them in advance, dry ones, and then cook them after they've soaked so that I have the fresh. But if you don't have that, a can of chickpeas sometimes as an emergency is okay. Okay, it's not quite as good, but it's okay. Now, I like you to put your chickpeas inside water, even if they're cooked in a can, to actually reheat them and cook them a little more, because in a can, they're always very, I'd say, al dente. So they'll always be gritty and not as creamy. So you just cook them a little more to make them really, really soft. So how do I put this dish together? I'm going to start by making the sauce. So in a bowl, I want you to put in some garlic. And all you need for this recipe is, I'm just making a small amount. So I've got a half a clove of garlic here that I've mushed to a pulp. Put the garlic in this big bowl here.
Okay, with the yogurt.
And then I'm going to, and then I'm going to add plain yogurt, of course, full fat, plain yogurt. Now there's no strawberries or raspberries or any of that stuff in there, okay? It's just plain yogurt. So that goes inside. And then on top of that, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh lemon juice. So a little bit, let's say about 2 tablespoons. And then I'm going to add in a pinch of milh. You'll know what that means, Libby, because you can speak a little bit of it. Salt, exactly, milh. So I'm going to season my yogurt. And then here I have the magic ingredient, and that is tahini. What is tahini? It's ground sesame seeds. That's it, 100%. It's basically sesame butter. So I'm going to pour in about 1/4 cup of tahini on top of my yogurt. And then with a little whisk, I'm going to start mixing it in. Now, what is the tahini adding to this mixture? I mean, the yogurt itself is nice and creamy and tangy. And the tahini is actually adding a nuttiness because it is sesame seeds after all. So it adds a beautiful nuttiness to this. Now, what I like to do at this point is actually take a spoon and just give it a taste. Taste it and tell me what you think. Yeah. You try it because you have to taste as you go along and adjust. It might need a little bit more salt. You might like a little bit more tahini. Tastes good?
Tastes
Perfect.
good.
So the sauce is good. Go ahead, Libby. You were going to ask me something?
Yeah. Is it time to start cooking these pita chips?
What you do is just in a little bit of oil, you drop in the Arabic bread that's been cut, and you're just basically going to fry it for a minute at most, just till it gets golden, or you could toast it in the oven, depending on, whatever you have. So if people who are watching, you could toast it in the oven. And this is actually the result of mine. I'll bring them closer to the camera. You see, these are the Arabic bread that I just sliced thinly and coiled them, and I just fried them in a little bit of peanut oil. Okay, so is yours frying right now, Libby?
I think they're done.
Okay, perfect. All right. So once they're done, you take them off and put them on an absorbent piece of paper so that it soaks up a little bit.
Okay.
And then what I also have prepared is pine nuts. If you have pine nuts, if you don't, what I do is I also saute them in a little bit of butter in a skillet to bring out the sweetness, because all nuts need to be either toasted or fried to get that little flavor. So if you don't have that, you can certainly use almond slivers, which is fine. And then here I have pistachio nuts as well that have been lightly toasted. All right. And I have some pomegranate seeds here just for a little bit pizzazz to add at the end. Okay. So we start, first of all, by placing some of these beautiful croutons at the bottom of the dish. So those are the first things that go in. Okay. And I'm saying here for this dish, I'm probably going to put in about 1/4 cup's worth of bread. And of course, if you are, gluten intolerant and bread is not your thing, you can certainly skip this and enjoy this dish without the bread. But it really adds a nice crunchy component that's delicious. Okay. And then of course, the star ingredient here is the chickpeas. So I'm going to take some of these chickpeas drained. Okay. And I'm going to place on top of my croutons. Okay. So my chickpeas are here. And now that beautiful yogurt sauce that we made together, the yogurt tahini sauce, okay, this is where it comes into the play. Now I start by putting in yogurt sauce on top of the chickpeas. So now you're talking cold yogurt with tahini and garlic on top of hot chickpeas and the crunchy croutons on the bottom. And I'm not aiming to make my croutons soggy. I want them to reserve their crunch. Okay. And then on top of that, this is where I go crazy with the nuts. And Arabic food is all about the nuts. And this particular dish, because this is very sort of quintessentially Palestinian. So we love our nuts. This is a little bit of, pine nuts. And then here, I'm just going to put in a little bit of pistachio nuts. And then I'm just going to put in a little bit of these beautiful pomegranate seeds that just sit on top of this fetid hummus like jewels. And then the very last thing we accessorize with, or I like to accessorize with, is something green. So just like we add that perfect necklace that is going to showcase whatever it is that we're wearing, I will put that in on top. So here, when you dig in with your spoon to taste, every biteful is going to be creamy, nutty, chickpeas that are hot with cold, and then the crunchy bread, and then of course the sweet crunch of the nuts. This is complete protein. It's healthy, it's nutritious. Tahini, a lot of people don't realize, actually is very high in calcium. Like 1 tablespoon has a little bit more than 60 milligrams of calcium. So it's a good source of calcium as well, and good for you. So I say ditch the cereal and opt for one of these beautiful parfaits. Fattet hummus is what it's called.
Okay, and how does this one look?
It looks magnificent. It's beautiful. And this is something that's going to keep you healthy and fulfilled and satiated a good part of the day. So it's very good. This is what I grew up eating here in Canada on cold winter days.
Chef Suzanne Husseini, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Shukran, Libby. Thank you.
Shukran. Afwan.
Afwan. Thank you.
And after we take a break, we take a trip to Eastern Europe with Chef Shauna Godfrey. Stay tuned.
We are going to be making a beet salad that has all of the flavors and ingredients as a beet borscht.
Welcome back. When it comes to fusing comfort food with the best ingredients, Chef Shauna Godfrey has it down to a science. Although she has worked at top star restaurants in Toronto and New York, it's all about her influences from her home and childhood. Her expertise is Eastern European and Ashkenazi Jewish food. Chef Shauna, thanks so much. What are you going to cook with us?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. We are going to be making a beet salad that has all of the flavors and ingredients as a beet borscht, which is a cold beet soup, often eaten in the summertime when the weather is hot. People garnish it with yogurt or sour cream, crunchy vegetables like cucumbers or radishes. So we're taking all of those amazing flavors and we're going to turn it into a salad. So first thing is I have here some beets with the tops on. So we are going to separate the beet bulbs from the greens. And I like to roast beets. I roast them in a 350-degree oven for about 1.5 to 2 hours. And when you roast beets, the nutrient stays inside. So these ones just get wrapped and put in the oven. Now the beet greens, we want to cut them into about 2-inch pieces. We're going to saute these shortly. So I'm going to cut mine over here and set them aside in a bowl. Okay, so if your garlic, we need 1 garlic clove. Now in a pan, we're going to make sort of a crunchy topping for our salad. So if there's a pan on medium heat, we're going to put a 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds.
Okay, just the sunflower seeds. Anything else going in there?
We're going to start with the sunflower seeds, and once they're toasted, we will turn off the heat and add the caraway seeds. So my sunflower seeds are nice and toasted. I'm going to turn off the heat and add the caraway.
Okay.
So they're kind of like savory sprinkles, crunchy topping. I'm going to put our sunflower seeds and caraway just into a bowl. We're going to use the pan now to saute some beet greens.
Okay, and what kind of oil for the beet greens?
Olive oil, about 2 tablespoons, just to sort of coat the bottom of the pan. Medium heat. And the garlic is going to go right into the pan with the olive oil. So that way the garlic won't burn so quickly. It will come up to temperature with the oil. Now, once there's some bubbling action on the garlic, we will add our beet greens to it.
Okay, there's bubbling action.
Perfect. So I'm going to add mine as well. Now, once you add your greens, you can add a little bit of salt. Now, salt brings out the flavor, but it also helps to break down the leaves so that it's easier to digest. So cooking the beet greens and adding some salt is going to sort of help it be a little bit more digestible. So my greens are sauteing. I'm going to let them sort of sit there, and I'm going to work on our roasted beets. I'm going to cut the beets into some like 1-inch pieces, just to make it a little bit more bite-sized to eat. So I can smell the garlic behind me. You can hear the sizzling of the pan. How do the beet greens smell for you, Libby?
They smell nice, and they're nice bright green color. I'm wondering if I shouldn't turn them off already.
That's perfect. I love your instinct. So we're going to turn it off and wait. We're going to add it to the bowl in just a moment. So we'll leave the pan with the greens on. So once your beets are all cut up, we will add it to a mixing bowl. We're going to add the beet greens to our same bowl. And we didn't cook the greens too much so that they still have a lot of the nutrients.
And they look nice.
Yeah, and okay, so into our beet green and cubed beets, we're gonna add some salt, a little bit more, about a tablespoon of olive oil. You can just sort of eyeball it. And the juice from half a lemon. Maybe about like a tablespoon or 2 of lemon juice. Put the lemon juice into our bowl. And this part you can make a couple days in advance. So we need to add the dairy and dill component of our dish. So I'm going to set the beets aside, and I'm going to make like a green yogurt sauce. So if you don't have a blender, you can do this all by hand. 3/4 cup of Greek yogurt. Perfect.
Okay.
And
All right.
add some roughly chopped dill. So I'm just grabbing about 1/3 of a bunch, and I'm going to roughly chop it. I'm going to blend mine, but hand mixing is great too. So I'm going to add the dill.
Okay, so I'm just mixing it up a bit in a rough way.
Yes, if you add any more lemon juice, we're going to add the half a juice of lemon for the other half.
Oh, that's a lot of lemon.
Little tangy. Okay.
Yeah.
And then about a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil is going to be added in there, just to sort of round out the flavors. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
So it's time to plate everything up.
Okay.
First, if you have a plate or a serving bowl, either one works. In the center of the plate, we can add a couple of spoonfuls of our yogurt sauce.
Oh, in the center of the plate.
We'll kind of like zhuzh it around and make like a big circle. It's the landing pad for our beets.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, our dressed beets and beet greens. We'll go just sort of right in the middle. So just sort of in the center, and we're going to kind of make a mountain of the beets and the beet greens, whatever can fit. It might not be all of it. Okay, and then before we add our crunchy sprinkles, our sunflower seeds and caraway, I have some sliced radishes and cucumber that you can sort of add optionally, just to give it a little bit more texture and some freshness. So I'm going to sort of just dot those around. And this is a salad that, depending on what's in season, like usually you can always find beets, but if radishes aren't looking great, then you don't need to use them. But the base ingredients you typically find year round. And then I'm just gonna finish it with like a sprinkle of our sunflower seeds and caraway seeds. And that will sort of add a nice toasty element or some texture.
And makes it look nice.
Yeah. So here's mine. There you go.
That is beautiful. And here is mine.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chef Shauna. When we come back, we'll hear some final thoughts from our panelists. Welcome back. With only a few minutes left, panelists, please leave us with some final thoughts. Let's start with Chef Miheer.
Well, thank you for having us. I hope this takeaway about spices broadens your knowledge about spices, and please feel free to follow Curryish. And if you have any questions about spices of any Indian food, please let us know, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Chef Suzanne.
We have a saying in Arabic that when we break bread together, "في بيناتنا خبز وملح," between us there's bread and salt. So then we are friends for life. So I like to think by sharing my little bread and salt with you today, I have made new friends and introduced you to something that you may not have known. Eat people's food and you understand their culture.
Chefs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chef Shauna.
I think I would like to leave you all with just the idea that vegetables, if you cook them in different ways, it can be really exciting, and something that might have been a dish growing up, you can sort of transform it and make it your own. Don't be afraid of cooking in your own kitchen.
That is all the time we have. Thank you to my panelists for being here. Also, a big thank you to producer Amber Giro and Daria, our floor director, for getting all of the kitchen items together. Have fun in the kitchen. It'll be delicious, and we can all benefit from finding slightly new ways to cook. We'll see you soon. For now, it's time to zoom out.